Hi, be with you in 1 sec. Hi, just let me check one thing before we start. Just need to check that I am on in the right place on Instagram. Looks like it. Yes. How are you? How's your Monday going? Good? I hope it's going well. It's fine if it's not, but I hope it's going well. Okay, so we're going to do a bit of meditation. This isn't a class, it's just a chance to meditate together. I do these meditations as part of the further emergence work that I do, and I do them on Monday, Wednesday and Friday. On Wednesday and Friday we just meditate, but on Mondays I explain what I do for the benefit of people who are new to meditation. So if you're an experienced meditator, that's brilliant. Could you just hang on while I do that, while I explain? There's lots of different types of meditation. This is just what I do. For me, it starts with why I would meditate. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to connect to a part of me that I connect to every night when I go to sleep. Not the dreaming bit, the bit after dreaming. So I'm sort of dreaming and then I drop at the bottom of dreaming into deep dreamless sleep where I have no thoughts, no memories, no emotions, no feelings, no personality. I don't have a body really, or a bed, or a bedroom, or anything like that. Everything just disappears. I even disappear because I don't really exist in deep dreamless sleep, and certainly not in the way that I normally register my existence. So I mean, that all sounds awful when you add it up. It sounds like death. Yet I love going to sleep, and when I wake up in the morning, I feel refreshed. So some part of me knows that wherever I go to, it's a good place. And that's where I want to go to when I meditate. I just want to do it consciously. So straight away, tip number 1, if you're new to meditation, don't try this lying down. If you lie down, there's a good chance that you'll battle sleep or you'll fall asleep, both of which are kind of counterproductive to what you're trying to do with meditation. So yeah, sit up. You don't have to sit in a lotus position or anything like that. That's unless you're very comfortable sitting in a lotus position. I'm just sitting in a chair. If you're going to sit in a chair, make sure it's not a big comfortable armchair that you'll fall asleep in. So as I said, there's no thinking. It's like where I go to when I meditate, it's like a room that I go into that my mind has to wait outside the door. So from my mind's perspective, it's kind of boring. So I need to work out some way of getting my mind on board. It's really important to have your mind on board for the process. If you don't have your mind on board, you're just going to be battling with your mind. It's usually not a big issue the first couple of times you meditate because your mind will be on board because meditation is a new and interesting thing. Having your mind on board, if you want to have a long-term meditation practice, that's when, the 20th time you're doing it where your mind knows exactly what's going to happen, and then it can start thinking up all sorts of reasons why doing the vacuuming or washing the dishes or maybe doing your taxes or, all those things that you've been putting off. Yeah, we should probably do them now rather than meditate. Anything but meditate. So having your mind on board is important. If you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them after. But for now, we'll just say having your mind on board is important. What I do is I make an arrangement with my mind. I just basically say, could you just not think for the next 15 minutes because I want to meditate? And because I've been meditating for a long time, my mind is okay with it. It grudgingly goes, yep, fine, okay, 15 minutes, not the end of the world. Anything can wait for 15 minutes. So my mind is on board. Good. Next thing, stop thinking. Now, stopping thinking is easy enough to do. It's not so easy to maintain, but it's easy to do. Because regardless of what I'm thinking about, which would be the content of my thoughts, the structure of my thoughts, it's always the same. It's always pictures and sound. So if I turn off the pictures and I turn off the sound, that's it. I'm not thinking. And as soon as I do that, I'm into the practice of meditation. Now, the practice of meditation runs parallel to the intention of my meditation. Now, the intention is, as I said, to go to this deep, still, calm, peaceful, profound place. The sort of all those words that are used to describe meditation that we talked about at the beginning. So that's my intention. And then the practice pretty much starts as soon as I stop thinking, and it generally goes, I'll turn off the pictures, I'll turn off the sound, I'll bring myself back to not thinking. Then some time passes, I discover I'm thinking again. I go, oh, thinking again, turn off the pictures, turn off the sound, bring myself back to not thinking. Then some time passes, I discover I'm thinking again, oh, thinking again, turn off the pictures, turn off the sound, bring myself to not thinking. Then some time passes, I discover I'm thinking again, and so on. So it's pretty simple. Every time I discover that I'm thinking, I bring myself back to not thinking. And it's good to know that thinking happens during meditation. It's quite easy to get the misconception that to meditate correctly, you shouldn't be thinking at all, which in my experience is not the case. These two things, the intention and the practice, go together, and they sort of weave back and forward, and you do a little dance, if you like. Sometimes you'll be very deep and still, and other times you'll be discovering that you're thinking. And both are powerful in their own way. It might be obvious. Well, it's obvious when you're very still. That feels powerful. You can feel the changes in your nervous system. You can feel there's a big sense of depth, and that's beautiful. And the power is kind of obvious. When you are discovering your thinking, it's also powerful, but there's more space to get into thinking about thinking. Meaning it's very easy to kind of go, oh no, I'm thinking again, or oh, I'm terrible at meditation. That's the 20th time I've discovered I'm thinking. I'm rubbish at this. Which is hilarious, because that's just just more thoughts to be turned off. But anyway, the power is not in so much that bit. The power is in the fact that if you're like me, the sort of things that you think about when your mind starts to wander, they're all sort of from your perspective. Meaning, I'll be thinking about, why did I say that to that person? Why did that person say that to me? What am I going to do about that thing? You know, those kind of thoughts. Now, if I'm in the middle of meditation and I'm having those kind of thoughts, and then I go, oh, thinking, I turn off the pictures, I turn off the sound, I bring myself back to not thinking. Indirectly, what I'm saying to myself or demonstrating to myself is, you know that thought that you just had, the one that you thought was you and that you were it? Well, you just made it disappear. You just made it go poof. So you're obviously not that thought. In fact, you're not any of your thoughts. You're something different. That's very powerful. And the fact that you do that repeatedly, that's very powerful as well. So the main thing is, the golden rule, if you like, is whenever you discover you're thinking, bring yourself back to not thinking by turning off the pictures and turning off the sound. The sound meaning internal dialogue, commentary, conversations that you're having inside your head. You're not trying to turn off the sound outside. You know? And there's no right amount of times that you have to do that in a meditation. Meaning, you know, you could meditate in the morning and only have to bring yourself back, from thinking a few times, maybe 20, 30 times. Then you might meditate in the afternoon and you might have to bring yourself back 200, 300 times. The meditation in the afternoon is not worse than the one in the morning. It's not the way it works, okay? There's no right amount of times, because it changes from day to day and from hour to hour. So every time you're thinking, bring yourself back to not thinking. Now, while all that's going on, I'm also becoming a little bit more conscious of my body, and in particular stress in my body. So I'm scanning my body from my head down to my feet and back up again very slowly, very gently. Anywhere I find tension, I let it go. And I use my out breath to let it go, because two reasons. It's very natural to just breathe it away. Feels very natural. You can feel the tension going when you breathe it out. It always reminds me of water on the beach, you know, not waves, but just when the water's coming in and going out again, coming in and going out again. Each time the water goes out, the sound is a bit smoother. Each time I breathe out, I have a little bit less tension. The other thing I'm doing as I'm scanning my body, the other thing about why it's good to use your breath is that it's quite easy to hold your breath in meditation. With all the thinking, not thinking going on, it can be quite easy to get a bit focused and stop and forget to breathe. And then you can suddenly go, take a deep breath. So using your out breath to let go of tension, it's just a good way of remaining a little bit more conscious of your breathing. Now, the other thing I do as I'm scanning my body up and down is I spend a little bit more time on any structures in my body that go across or transverse in my body. Mostly my body runs longitudinally, head to toe, but anywhere that goes across operates a little bit like a log going across a stream. So, it picks up all the twigs and the branches and the leaves and everything that's coming down the stream. Except in my body, that's tension. So I'm spending a little bit more time on my eyes, my jaw, my tongue, the base of my neck, my shoulder girdle. These are all transverse sites. So are my joints, so my shoulders, elbows, wrists, fingers, my respiratory diaphragm, all my intestines, my pelvic floor, my hips, my knees, my ankles, and my toes. It's nice to have a quiet room when you're starting out in meditation, mainly because when you, one of the things that triggers thoughts is sound, and as soon as you close your eyes to meditate, your hearing amplifies. So the quieter the room, the easier it will be for you. And then the other thing I do to help myself have less things to think about, or less triggers, is I set a timer for how long I'm going to meditate for. So I am going to set my timer for 15 minutes. If you're brand new to meditation, I'd encourage you to set yours for 5 minutes and then repeat that 3 times. Because even if you set a timer, it can be an awful long time when you're just starting out. I know that sounds crazy, but it can. Around the 7 or 8 minute mark, you'd be like, no, I didn't set the timer properly. The internet's gone, and you should check, and your mind will just kick in. So I'd encourage you, if you're just starting out, set your timer for 5 minutes and then repeat that 3 times. Okay. That's all I've got. Now, let's get going. Off we go into the mystery. this time. Now, as I said at the beginning, these meditations are part of the further emergence work I do. Further emergence has to do with growth, inner growth, growth in consciousness, growth in awareness. You could call it spiritual growth. So growth on the inside. The idea is that like your body stops growing pretty much when you become an adult, but you keep growing on the inside. That doesn't stop. You continue to grow your whole life. You only have to think about who you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's really obvious that you've grown, and that process doesn't stop. And just like when you were a kid, you might have gone through a period of accelerated growth. There go growth spurts. You go through the same on the inside. You go through inner growth spurts, and they continue for your whole life as well. The big difference is, when you were a kid and you were going through a growth spurt and you went to your parents because you had pains in your legs or wherever you had the growing pains, your parents wouldn't have rushed you to the hospital. They wouldn't have brought you to the doctor. They would have just said, that's terrible, but it's natural. They're just growing pains. They'll pass. When you're going through an inner growth spurt and the attendant pains that come with that, and you're 45 or you're 55 or you're 25, it's much harder to know that it's natural and that it's normal and that it'll pass. It's a much bigger space to feel like this is unnatural and I'm broken in some way or another and this is not good. So the focus of further emergence is to support inner growth, just generally, growth in consciousness generally, and then specifically those times when you're going through an inner growth spurt. Because it can manifest in all sorts of different ways. You can feel very alone, very isolated, very broken, as I said. You can almost overnight go from feeling like everyone understands me, everyone gets me, to nobody gets me, I don't really get anybody, I don't feel like I fit in my life anymore. I remember working with a woman years ago, and I was working with her for craniosacral, but it's a real further emergence kind of thing. She sat up on the table and said, you know what, John, it's a terrible thing to wake up one morning and discover you have 5 kids. And I think that's a really good example of what further emergence can feel like. When you go through an inner growth spurt, almost overnight things can change. So these meditations are part of the support that I offer. Because meditation helps you become familiar with your inner landscape. And the more familiar you are with your inner landscape, the easier it is to navigate these inner growth spurts. So meditation is great. Then there's also retreats. There's a retreat every month, and they are sort of half a day, and it's more intense, longer meditations. But it's also a chance to sort of see that there are other people going through what you're going through, and hear what other people are saying, and kind of go, oh, okay, I'm not on my own with this. And there's little extracts of those on YouTube, or the audio is in the podcast, so you can kind of have a listen to those and get an idea of what they're like. And if you want to keep up with the meditations as a meditation practice, everything ends up on YouTube. So if you happen to miss one, it's better to do it live with me. Just meditating with people is just more powerful. Even though we're not together physically, we are connected. But if you miss that and you want to, you still want to meditate, then it's all on YouTube. All the live meditations are on YouTube. What else? I also work with people one-to-one. I do that in a couple of different ways. And the reason for the need, or why the one-to-one work is beneficial, is because it can be so different. How your inner growth spurt can manifest can be so different from person to person. So I've been through further emergence myself loads of times, and I've helped loads of people through it as well. So having one-to-one work is just really helpful to get very specific feedback about where you are. And then I also work with your system energetically behind the scenes to sort of help it settle and integrate the process that you're going through. And then I've written books. I've written 4 books, all roughly around the subject of further emergence. So they're helpful as well. So there's lots there. So if you're still with me, if you're still watching all the way to the end, then some part of you is maybe going, yeah, there's something to this. So I'd encourage you to just let that part of you tell you what the next thing to do is for you, whether it's more meditation, come to one of the retreats, get in touch for some one-to-one work. That part of you will know what to do. So, thanks for meditating with me, and see you on Wednesday for some more meditation.